Hello, in this tutorial I want to combine some errors. The errors could be looked at separately and analysed as distinctive parts of the language. However, I have found my own learners often mix up these errors as a result of some similar misunderstandings. So, today the main errors I'm focusing on are plurals versus singular, articles, and the concept of agreement. So these parts of the English language are especially difficult for learners where their first languages do not make strong distinctions between plurals and singulars, or where there are simply no articles, or where a change in subject does not lead to a change in the verb form. So what are each of these? Well, briefly, plurals and singulars simply tell us something is a one, that is a unique, or a more than one. So, one person, two people, three people, 1,000,000 people. One idea, 10 ideas. Of course, we're more likely to say something like an idea, a few ideas, many ideas, some ideas, or a person, a few people, lots of people. And there we have introduced the second point, articles. So, for example, I want to eat an apple. Give me the apple in your hand. And finally, subject-verb agreement. And the subject is the first part of an English sentence and is a noun or a noun phrase. So I, you, the man, the children, etc. And subject-verb agreement is where the main verbs in your sentence must agree with the subject in number and in person. So, I like spicy food. He likes spicy food too. They like spicy food as well. Now, in this tutorial, I can't cover everything you need to know about all of these grammar points. And I think this is particularly so for articles, which are, I believe, a notorious stumbling block for many of my own students and friends, and I admit occasionally myself. But I hope to look at articles in more depth in a future video. So let me know in the comments if that would be helpful and if you have any specific questions about them. So let's have a look at some of the errors on the screen and I will show you how they can be corrected. Okay, let's begin. So this is our first sentence, and before we go any further, let's make it a complete sentence by punctuating that with a period, or as we say in England, full stop. Car is very convenient, but it can also be dangerous. Now, this sentence is it's possible to take this sentence in two directions. The problem is whether the writer wants to talk about one car or the concept of car or cars. So let's keep it as a singular, car. Right? So if it's a singular car, or one car, it's going to need an article, and that's going to be the article for a single item. A car is very convenient, but, and this is also important, the pronoun that follows in the second part of the sentence is it. It can also be dangerous. Now, if you wanted to make this sentence a plural sentence, you could change the car to cars. So, and that verb, the be verb there, would need to agree with the plural form. So that would be cars are very convenient. Now, after the but conjunction there, we need to change the pronoun to correspond to the first part of the sentence, and that would be they. So cars are very convenient, but they can also be dangerous. A car is very convenient, but it can also be dangerous. Both okay. It's entirely up to the writer which way they choose to write that, and there's an argument for both, or either of those, should I say. Okay, let's get a new new sentence to look at. There were even child sea turtles. It was small and cute. Alright, first of all, if this is the beginning of a sentence, let's punctuate it. Beginning of a sentence always takes a capital letter. So there were even child sea turtles. It was small and cute. Now, these are two sentences, and on their own, they're both correct. Okay? But together, they're not correct. And this is a case of looking at the text as a whole and the consistency that's required by the writer. So if you set it up as a plural in one sentence, you must continue that in the next sentence. But the writer hasn't. So there were even child sea turtles. I don't child sea turtles. Okay. We can find other ways to say that, but I think that's okay. I don't know if they mean baby sea turtles. I'm sorry, I don't know if there's a proper noun for baby sea turtles. But the problem here, so we're talking about plurals, turtles, so it is not a plural pronoun. Right? They is the plural pronoun there for the third person, and we'd have to change the be verb again to agree with that. So they were small and cute. There were even child sea turtles. They were small and cute. Lovely. Okay, let's get rid of that and get another sentence. Okay, what's the problem here? He got the money from his part-time job, but he spent the money on pachinko. This is what I discussed in the introduction of agreement. So he, which is the third person singular, requires the verb to be given the, shall we say, the its form. So he gets the money from his part-time job, but he spends the money on pachinko. That's an easy fix, but it doesn't really affect the meaning. It's just not helpful if you're trying to take an English test. You will not get points for that. Okay, here's another one. Indian people is more genius and talent. Okay, let's just get rid of that capital letter there. There's no need at all for that in the sentence. This obviously is the beginning of a sentence, but it's also a proper noun, Indian. So Indian people is more genius. People, plural. And we know agreement is for a singular form, and that is not agreeing. So Indian people are more genius and talent. Let's fix the type of word we're dealing with. Talent, I have a talent. It's a noun, isn't it? And an adjective is required here to describe what Indian people are. So that needs to be changed to the adjective, talented. More genius. Well, it's not very natural. I get it what they're saying. I would probably talk to my writer about this in case they really wanted to use genius. Otherwise, I'd change it to sound more natural with intelligent. Indian people are more intelligent and talented. Period. Full stop. Okay. This particular student had just been to India and was obviously very impressed by the people he met. Next sentence. There are so many advertising for alcohol or tobacco in daily life. Let's give that a period before we go any further. So that ends the sentence. There are so many advertising for alcohol or tobacco in daily life. Advertising. Well, it's a mass noun. It's not countable. You can't count advertising. One advertising, two advertisings. No. So many is usually used with countables, many people, many times. We prefer with uncountables to use much. There are so much advertising. Oh, now we've got an issue with agreement on the verb because we're using a mass noun it works as a singular. So there is so much advertising for alcohol and tobacco in daily life. You could see there I stumbled because that's not natural to me. I'd rather have an and. It's not a real problem, but and is better. There is so much advertising for alcohol and tobacco in daily life. Isn't there just? Okay, look at that. Let's get rid of that one. This is a bit longer, and we need to slip that up there. Sometimes my students, when they're writing, have a problem where they break the line for some peculiar reason I never quite understand. So I often do a lot of line fixing. I don't know if you do this kind of thing, but try to stick to the line. When to change line as regard coming from one sentence to another sentence, well, that's something else we could possibly look at in another tutorial. There is many people who are tourists, are Korean, Chinese and mainland people, so I heard a variety of languages. First of all, when I first look at this, I think there are so many words which all basically mean people. So we have people, tourists are people, Koreans are people, Chinese are people, mainland people are people. So we want to reduce that. We know that we want to reduce that. That kind of thing can happen even among native speaker writers, that they overuse a word or a type of word, and they can cut that down and reduce their writing so it's not so, dare I say it, long-winded. There are as many people who are tourists are Korean. A number of ways you could change this. First of all, we need to change this to agree with people, right? People, we know, I hope you know by now anyway, are. There are many people who are. Do we need that? Let's have a think. There are many people who are tourists are Korean. Oh, there are many people who are Korean, Chinese and mainland. The way I would change that is there are many. Let's just cut that bit completely. We're going to keep that tourists though, because that's a really important distinction between non-tourists in this case and the people visiting who are tourists. So there are many Korean, Chinese and mainland. And here's where we can change it. We don't need people if we put tourists, because as I said, tourists are people. And they're a particular type of people, the type of people we are talking about in this sentence and in this student's essay. So there are many Korean, Chinese and mainland tourists, so I heard a variety of languages. That's wonderful. And obviously Chinese is a proper noun, so it takes a capital letter. Always, countries, nationalities take a capital letter. Please don't forget that. There are many Korean, Chinese and mainland tourists, so I heard a variety of languages. Okay, next sentence. This sentence was written by one of my high-level students. And she uses English in her work life, so she's very competent. But even so, there are some errors going to slip in when she writes, and that's perfectly fine. It's not a really bad error, that's the thing. The meaning is not lost. In these days, I ate out for dinner 3 or 4 times every week. Perfectly fine. I do not have enough time to cook on weekday. So I went to a restaurant instead. Enough time to cook on weekdays. So I went to a restaurant instead. Now, a restaurant, it could imply that she went to the same restaurant every day. I went to a restaurant instead. Or it could just mean generally, I went to a restaurant. So it can be, I could argue that it could be a little bit vague, but I think it's better than, so I went to restaurants instead, personally. So that's fine, I think. So I went to a restaurant instead. In these days is not particularly natural for me. I would put something like during this time. And because this is an adverbial phrase, we're going to put a comma there. And when I say that, it's because the real sentence, the sentence proper, should we say, starts with the subject, I. English starts with a subject, goes on to a verb, and then whatever else follows. And if you know anything about adverbials, should I say, they can move, so that could actually go at the end there if we wanted instead during this time. I ate out for dinner 3 or 4 times a week. I did not have enough time to cook on weekdays, so I went to a restaurant instead during this time. But my changes didn't improve this, so let's go back to the original. Okay. And here's one final sentence to look at. It's actually from the same writer as in the previous sentence, so the topic you can see is similar. But because she's a higher level student, I think it's worth having a look just how articles seem to be a constant problem for learners right up the grading, shall we say. And although I had more opportunities of eating out than ordinary people, I could not find really good restaurant. Now, you could either choose to make this a singular with a indefinite article a. Notice it has to go before the adjective phrase there. A really good restaurant. So I could not find a really good restaurant. Or you can make that a plural form with no article and just put an S on the end of restaurants. So I could not find really good restaurants. It's entirely up to the writer how they decide to write that sentence, but they must be consistent so that the reader does not get confused. Okay, so that's it for today. I hope that was useful. And if you have any questions, you can put them in the comments below on the video. Or you can even send me a question, and if it's one I can answer quickly, I'll try. Otherwise, I'll try to include it in a future tutorial. So if you have a particular error or sentence you'd like me to have a look at, please do send it. I really enjoy getting questions from learners. So thank you very much, and I look forward to talking to you in the next video. Bye bye.